Hello, I'm Antek, creative director Schmecter at Nyx Studios, and I'm currently holed up, as you can see, in the Myred Spirits, dead center of the Soulsmire core node. And I came all the way down to this hellhole to answer whatever bizarre stuff you good people want to know about the Nyxlands of Havoc, or whatever else is rattling around your heads. Without further ado, let's dive into the first question, shall we? The first question we have is a question posed by Tiptoe Saturn. How was the name Havoc landed on? Also, so second question now, which are your favorite cards and backstories? I think there's another question on the list that asks about cards specifically. So let's treat this one as a question about the backstories. This one is a fun one. We've done a lot of thinking about the names for the game and the universe that we have. And originally, way before we went public with anything, Havoc was actually an acronym. It stood for Hardshell Armored Vehicle Omni-Combat System. Hardshell Armored Vehicle Omni-Combat System. That was a terrible idea. But we did like, and I still really like, how Havoc sounds as a word. When we went to Kickstarter with the game, we scrapped the acronym, we dropped the dots between the letters and launched Havoc Gen 0, the first doorway into our universe. And the game systems that we had built around it. I mean, most of the game systems that we had built around it. And now, Havoc has reached a new point of maturity. We've always had this universe. It kept consistently growing. And we finally gave the world itself, you can call it the intellectual property, a proper name. So when we say the Nyxlands of Havoc, we mean the whole dark and messed up world we built, including the Terminus, and also expanding beyond it. Now, the second edge of that question was favorite backstories, right? So usually my favorite thing is the thing I'm currently working on. And right now it's also true. So I'm really enjoying this secret thread that we started spinning in that little animation we dropped recently. You might have seen it on YouTube or other social media. You might have seen a strange, colossal object rolling through the Nyxlands and inhaling particles and exhaling these huge clouds of thick smoke. We've been wanting to introduce a danger, even bigger than the reset storms, the anomalies, or the barometer. The shape that you saw in that clip is what we call a potent. And inside of it hides a creature known as a Virarch. That's actually all I'll say for now. We'll tell more of that story once I've convinced Zach, maybe, to let us fold it deeper into the game. On to the next question. Okay, question number 2 is from Mr. Zoran. At what point in development was the sci-fi theme chosen, and why was it cosmic horror rather than a more optimistic sci-fi universe? Well, we at Nyx Studios have quite a bit of creative freedom when it comes to things like that, so it definitely wasn't dictated by market strategy or any other nonsense like that. We actually chose dark sci-fi and cosmic horror quite early on, even before we started working on the card game. I got personally involved in the universe creation before others on the team, and I decided that I wanted to do something high concept, and I pitched basically the weirdest thing I could think of. It took us a while, and we're still perfecting things, to align the style of imagination with the style of writing, with the style of illustration, with the style of game design and animation, and all the bits of the world that we create through different media. But all in all, we really enjoy ideating in this creepy sandbox. I don't really want to come out as a horror maximalist, so I do need to say that on a personal level, I love hopeful sci-fi too. Becky Chambers, your work is incredible. Thank you very much for writing my favorite solarpunk novels. But my imagination naturally leans towards, I guess, darker tales. An optimistic writer might ask, what if we build a better world? But the cosmic horror voice in my head keeps wondering, what if the universe truly doesn't care if we exist, or even What happens when a god that suffers from a psychological illness begins creating a world? What would that world look like? Let's not pretend horror and weirdness are kind of our thing. We have a lot of fun with these themes, and we collected a group of creatives here at Nyx Studios who are quite like-minded, I should say. And together we take alarming amounts of joy in coming up with ideas for new abominations and monstrosities and dark unknowns. It's horror, yes, but we don't take our work on it too seriously internally. We have a lot of fun with this genre. Let's go into the next question. Next question is from Phantom of the Nyx. Two questions, actually. Does Irex have any family? And can you name a few of the major wars? Okay. Starting with Irex and his family. Does he have a family? To quote from a classic, short answer is yes, with an if, and the long answer is no, with a but. Does he have a human-styled nuclear family? No. For me to give a more truthful answer, though, you need to hear more about Segwar reproductive cycles. So our dear Segwar, who are one of the civilizations in the Nyxlands of Havoc, don't really form human-style families. At least they haven't done that for a very, very long time. First of all, they hatch from eggs, and their original homeworld, where they evolved, was brutal. It was a rogue, irradiated planetoid called Anoda. It drifted through space, swinging between orbits through periods of deadly freezes and searing heat. And in a place like that, slow evolutionary change meant certain extinction. Natural evolution just couldn't keep up with the astronomical changes in the environment. So, as the Segwars became smarter and more inventive, they pushed their tech towards gene editing. Conveniently, their anatomy made the job easier because even before they started tinkering with their own genome, nature had set them up for it by giving them the so-called trivertebrate body structure. Each individual Segwar basically carries 3 parallel spinal columns, and each of those columns houses its own complete DNA vault. So when radiation, which was rampant on Anoda, would damage the data in one of these 3 spinal columns, the other 2 could act as immediate backups, which ultimately gave them a kind of natural rollback mechanism or version history for repairing radiation damage. Then, over millennia, nature's roulette gave way to this technological precision design, and once you control every trait on demand, things like fertility, immunity, metabolism, splitting chromosomes into 2 sexes becomes just needless baggage. Reproduction is now pure tech, and gendered forms have faded into myth. And, coming back to the original question, so did nuclear families. So, Irex might have progenitors. He actually definitely does have progenitors, siblings, and in some ways even offspring. But I don't believe that we would recognize his genealogical tree as a family unit. And if you're wondering how all that I just said reflects on the weird names brandished by the Segwar cards in the game, so Diguans and Metrions and Theraphosans, these are names of the so-called gene clans and morphotypes within the Segwar civilization. You can think of them as kind of guilds. So there is a worker clan, repair clan, data clan, strategist clan, warrior clan, and they are pre-assigned to these groups before birth. Well, that got long pretty fast. For the wars that Phantom of the Nyx was asking about, I'll just literally name drop some of them and leave it at that. So there's War for Nephra, Sola Fide invasion of the central regions, Segwar wars over the Silicon node, and boom, answer delivered. But I will come back to that in a future episode, I hope. On to the next question. This one's coming from Epic Nephrin. Why is there no Vadbipe pilot? Will more mech shells make their debut? Starting with the Vadbipe pilot. This one's very easy. The Vadbipe pilot does exist. He's real. I gave him gender. They're out there. We just haven't officially released him into the game yet. Same goes for more mech shells. But for the mech shells, we are actually literally working on them right now. And they will be glorious. But they will take some time. We want to do the design right, and we want to bring them to the highest level of quality because they deserve it. They're such an important element of the game that we like to take our sweet time with designing those. Okay, number 6 is a question from Saboteur. Ooh, this one's spicy. Is Thea single? Yes, she is single. She, as a character, is fueled by maniacal vengeance. And at least in the core stories, that consumes the entirety of her free time. She didn't really have an opportunity to think about romance much. Perhaps there are stories from her distant past that I haven't discovered yet. Who knows? For now, for all I know, she is single. Okay, question number 7. Is Grin... Ooh, this one's even more spicy. Is Grin single?
I can be whatever you want me to be, sweetheart.
Okay, I thought the same. Thank you, Grin, for answering that one. And on to the next question. And this one is the longest question asked. The artwork for Cairo Priestess is currently the favorite artwork for both me and my wife. It inspires a visceral reaction from the gore and in how visually distinct it is from everything else we've seen in the game so far. Are there any plans to swing any future artworks in the other direction and have something very cutesy or funny that will stand out among the dreary space horror? Well, first of all, Cairo Priestess, it's also one of my favorites, and I'll say that it does have quite a lot of backstory to it as well. It's probably for that reason that it is my favorite. The female Vadbipe, you can see here in this image, is not a cannibal. Well, she might be during off hours, but in this particular moment, she's ripping the heart of a fallen brethren in order to bring them back to life. On her hip, you can see a belt where she will store the heart in a special preserving vessel, and she will use it in the future to create a Cairo copy of the deceased and effectively give them a second chance. I could also, well, we also do have a special heart design for the Vadbipes. You might have noticed that apart from the primary section of the heart, there are also these secondary small hearts. Together it forms something we called a heart chain, and if not for that design, that whole Cairo replica experiment would not be possible. I think we'll be releasing a post about Vadbipe heart anatomy pretty soon. The next side of this question, do we want to have things that are cutesy or funny? We can do funny, yes. But cutesy? Probably not.
I'm cutesy.
Yes, Grin, thank you, you're adorable. Ultimately, the world we're working with is big enough to house quite a lot of different things, and we like that. There's even space for weirdos like Grin, but not side by side. If we start hearing from you, our beloved community, that our scary illustrations have caused you suffering or trauma, I hope they don't. And if you truly desire more optimistic takes, we'll hear you out at the very least, and maybe even take photographs and sketches in areas of the Terminus where the fun things happen. They do exist naturally. The unforgiving landscape of the space station, I think it lends itself well to people wanting to develop a particular kind of dark humor. We haven't explored it very heavily, but I'm sure it will be excavated at some point from the stories of the Terminus. They just really haven't been the most relevant for the main stories that we had to tell so far. Okay, the next question is from Tiptoe Saturn, asking about the favorite cards of all the Havoc creators. I couldn't get the answer from all the Havoc creators, but I have a few. So my favorite card is... I don't really have one favorite card But if I had to choose very quickly without thinking, the first two that come to mind are the Cairo Priestess, illustrated by Manuel Alcantara. I already talked about that one. And the second one would be The Ferryman's Cat, illustrated by Sibilla Pepi. That one I have a very special place for in my heart because it's one of the oldest stories about the Terminus, actually not even set on the Terminus, that we ever told. It has more than 4 years of baggage, and it's sort of like around that time when I wrote that story that I felt that the world we're building was going to turn out cool. So for that reason, I really like that the card exists and that it has a very cool illustration to speak for itself. That's my favorite card, but I need to also say other creators' favorite cards. So for Felix, it's his own illustration, actually, naturally. He came up with it single-handedly, and he wanted me to refer to it by the name that he suggested for it, not the one we actually chose for it. Now, this one's actually a secret. It's part of the future expansion. It's called the Verometon Auction. And Felix's given illustration title is Milton's Big Day Out. Thanos' favorite card is Dreadbind, also a secret expansion illustration that I can't show you. Ah, damn it. Dreadbind was illustrated by the legendary Bobby Reepholz. Finally, for Tommy, I have more people actually written down. So for Tommy, the favorite card and illustration is the Wasteland Raider, illustrated by Zhou Xunhan. And Mike's favorite illustration is Verometal Bane, also by Manuel Alcantara. Zach didn't respond to me, so he'll have to respond in a text somewhere on Discord to tell you what his favorite card is. Finally, the last question for this episode is one that is... This one is really difficult to wrap your head around. Dog Person asks, what is my favorite tire brand? I had to think about this one for a long time, and it's really difficult for me to pick a favorite. But I think it has to be my current bicycle tire brand that I use. It's Pirelli. The model name is Cinturato Adventure. Show's over. I hope you survived till the very end. If you did, the secret password is 00225. Please drop it in our Discord to win absolutely nothing. See you in the next episode for more questions. And if you have some of your own, please drop them in the dedicated channel in our Discord community server. I really hope to see you on the other side. Bye-bye.